Good morning, and thanks very much for being here with us today. You know, you heard Blake talk about this future, this future of industrial operations, operations that are autonomous in nature. And Cyril anchored us on these three key technology that enable autonomy. So my job today is to walk you through some of the things that you can do about every single one of them today, what's available now, and what's coming in the very near future. So let's get started with software-defined automation. So our strategy, as Cyril pointed out, for software-defined automation is quite simple. We have been working to make the entire production system software-defined. Much of what you hear in this market today is very narrowly focused on one dimension of the production system, typically software-defined control. And here at Rockwell, we've been doing that in every other layer of this stack. So for example, starting with design, FactoryTalk Design Studio, one system-wide application, logically defined, object-oriented, completely abstracted from hardware. And this year, and coming up next year, you're going to continue to see significant enhancements across FactoryTalk Design Studio. Things like support for motion control, support for functional safety, deeper online interactions, and yes, support for on-premises disconnected workflows, and many, many more. So we're very excited about the adoption rate of FactoryTalk Design Studio, and we're looking very much to the next evolution of that platform. And I encourage you to go and check that out today at the automation show floor. Once these systems are designed, they can then be simulated and completely tested in the virtual space with tools like FactoryTalk Echo and Emulate 3D. The entire system can be virtualized. And this year, even more enhancements to Emulate 3D. Things like a complete fault insertion framework, test runners that allow you to run literally thousands of interactions, thousands of scenarios that can be simulated and tested in your computer so you can catch issues early. And also this year, you'll see Emulate 3D with much deeper support for automation DevOps pipelines with things like deeper version control integration and many, many more. And then when you look at visualization systems, FactoryTalk Optics, one software-defined runtime that scales from very simple operator interface all the way up to very complex plant-wide information solutions. And this year, we have even more in FactoryTalk Optics. And what's coming next is deeper support for much larger distributed architectures, true orchestration of distributed optics nodes as part of a single system, and not just the traditional client-server type of architecture that you've seen in traditional distributed solutions. So we're very, very excited about what optics has become and continue to evolve into. And then yes, when it comes to control, I would start by saying, and I think most, if not all of you would agree, that no one in this industry has done more towards software-defined control as we have. Let me give you one example. That journey started with Logix, the introduction of Logix. And Logix did many, many things for this industry. But one thing it did that had the largest contribution towards software-defined control is that it eliminated the need for all of the disparate hardware that surrounded the traditional PLC. Hardware dedicated for safety, hardware dedicated for general motion control, hardware dedicated for robotic control, hardware dedicated for the DCS, for the process control. All of those things became software-defined capabilities integrated as part of the Logix runtime. And that alone not only has had the most contribution to software-defined control in this industry, but has made and continues to make Logix the most valuable control system runtime on this earth. And we have not stopped. We have not stopped innovating. When it comes to software-defined control, our next wave of evolution is what we call Logix SDA. And you are welcome to see it in our show floor. And Logix SDA is different. It's unique. It's different than the traditional idea and the traditional approach to soft control, to virtual control. And the reason it's different, it's because if we're honest with ourselves, the traditional approach to soft control has largely failed to gain any meaningful adoption in this market. We ourselves have had a few iterations over decades, and we know the market quite well. But the good news is that we know exactly why soft control has failed to gain adoption. And that's what makes Logix SDA unique. There are many things there, but I'll point out to two. First, Logix SDA brings forward all of these disciplines of control that made Logix great, including functional safety. Because it makes no sense for you to talk about a virtual control system, but you still need to add dedicated hardware for certain control functions. So by bringing all of these disciplines along, Logix SDA solves for one of the biggest problems that's prevented soft control from scaling. The second thing that I'll point out to you today, and again, there are many more, SDA solves for the complex lifecycle management problems that exist when you're trying to run real-time control on open platforms. Things like what it takes to provision the real-time control. Things like what it takes to manage the operating system, the dependencies that are along the operating system. What it takes to make sure that when other applications running on the same open compute, when they crash, that the control is remaining resilient and intact. And not to mention what it takes to secure control running on open hardware. And Logix SDA solves for all of those things. A key piece of that solution is what we call FactoryTalk Asset IQ. FactoryTalk Asset IQ provides you with a single plane for you to aggregate your inventory of OT assets so you can have them organized based on your plant or your information model. Once you know what you have, we give you deep insights as to the life cycle status for your assets. We tell you what revision of runtime firmware you're running for each one of those assets. And because it has deep integration with our product compatibility and download center, you can bring in the latest and greatest updates and manage deployment in bulk, just like IT assets are managed across any enterprise. And over time, you're going to see even more capabilities across FactoryTalk Asset IQ. Things like disaster recovery, things like management of not just the runtime, but the application code itself, deeper integration into our Lifecycle Services IQ offerings, things like integration into installed base evaluation services, My Equipment, and Secure OT, cybersecurity services. It's not by accident that the product is called FactoryTalk Asset IQ. We expect an increasing amount of synergies and value creation across this offering and our lifecycle services offering. So we're very excited, and I encourage you to see that at the show floor. Our first variant of Logix SDA is what we call Logix Edge. And it's exactly what it sounds. It's Logix SDA running on edge compute. And you will see it right at the show floor. But many other forms of Logix SDA, including it embedded in our own auto AMRs. So please go and check that out so you can see for yourself it in action. So once you have a software-defined automation system, you create the foundation. As Cyril pointed out, the foundation for software to move freely across the compute that you have available in the enterprise. But that alone does not yield autonomy. For you to get to autonomy, you need intelligence. You need AI, or some of you will call automation intelligence, not just artificial intelligence. And here at Rockwell, just like SDA, we have been applying AI across the entire system. But we know very well, and we know that you know, that the real question is not whether we have AI in the system. Blake and Cyril talked about all of the different layers where we have this capability available today, but the real question is how we've been using AI. And here at Rockwell, we're focused on applying AI to where we believe the most value is created. And I will point to 3 today. AI that's used to power production system design, AI that's used to optimize your process once your systems are designed so they can continuously improve, and agentic plant information systems, all the way from visualization, information systems, maintenance, and MES. So let's talk a little bit about each one of them. Starting with design. By being the first to cloud with a cloud-native solution, we have been leading the introduction and the adoption of AI capabilities across design environments. Last year, I told you all about the generative AI capabilities that exist and have continued to evolve in our FactoryTalk Design Studio. AI that's there to help you do your work better, for you to be more productive in how you do your work. Well, not only we've continued to build on that, but this year, we're leading the next wave of evolution with agentic production system design. And in particular, you will see 2 new agents in FactoryTalk Design Studio, and you will experience them in the show floor. It's what we call the plan and the build agent. You can take your plan agent and you can specify your objectives for your system. And then you provide inputs, things like code libraries, things like your specifications, things like your standards, things like your drawings. And then you will interact with this plan agent until you find that it's meeting your objectives. And then that will be dispatched to your build agent, who will actually do all the work of creating the entire system application. And we're extending the capabilities well beyond just logic. We're extending the capabilities to visualization as well, with AI capabilities built into FactoryTalk Optics Studio as well. So I'm very excited about the transformation that we continue to drive in this industry, and our goal is to minimize the cost to design our new systems for you as much as practical. When it comes to AI that's used to optimize control, last year you heard me talk about Logix AI. You know, Logix AI brings intelligence into Logix. It understands inputs of control and autonomously adjust outputs of control so your system can be always green. Well, we've continued to build on that. And I'll point out to 2 areas. One is Logix SDA itself. You saw on the prior picture that beyond the traditional disciplines of control, and as Cyril pointed out, you can bring your own workloads. You can bring your own third-party workloads that are seamlessly integrated with the Logix real-time control system. And those workloads can be machine learning workloads. And you saw some of the announcement and some of the advancements we've been making with companies like NVIDIA, with training of Nemotron Nano small language models on FactoryTalk Design Studio data, so they can be brought into the OT system for even more real-time optimization. But then above the control layer, what you will see as well is us investing in FactoryTalk Optics, a brand new MLOps capability native into FactoryTalk's Optics Studio, so that you can bring your models you can manage them through their life cycle, and you can deploy them integrated with the optics runtime above your control system for even more plant-wide optimization. So a lot of capability around optimizing your systems once it's designed and once those systems are running. And then when it comes to agentic plant information systems, last year I told you about the things we've been doing to advance things like Fix with maintenance workflows, so risks associated with maintenance needs of your assets can be understood, can be predicted. We've continued to advance Fix well beyond just predicting the risk associated with different assets, but also predicting your needs for spare parts, automatically generating work orders for your maintenance staff, and many, many more. And when it comes to MES, think about this. Plex is exposed to literally tens of billions of transactions every single day, trillions across the spectrum of a year, across thousands of plants. When you have such rich data set, you can train, you can inform, you can build the best agents, AI agents in the industry that will simplify what it takes for you to not just build, but consume MES capability. And this year, you will see 6 different agents being brought into the Plex environment and the capabilities for you to construct your own agents so they can do the work for you associated with MES capabilities. Plex is leading the agentic MES era. It's changing the world from a system of interactions to a system of autonomy. And you can experience that for yourself today at the show floor. So very, very excited about the broad spectrum of AI capabilities that are available for you today and coming very soon. So when you combine software-defined automation with AI, you have a good amount of autonomy. But you can get even more autonomy if you free your system from physical constraints, from mechanical constraints. And there's quite a few things we've been doing to help you make that happen. And I'll point out to 2 today. First is, last year I told you all about technology that helps you build modular machines so you can more easily interchange mechanical modules, especially for high throughput systems where you need dedicated mechanics for your application. Things like a broad portfolio of our machine solutions. We have not stopped creating even more. Things like our PowerFlex 330 that you can see it in the show floor, a high efficiency distributed drive motor solution that brings motor control very close to the point of actuation, completely simplifying what it takes for you to build machine modules. And then Point Max. Point Max, our best machine I/O ever. High density I/O, compact, with rich data models that seamlessly integrate I/O data into the rest of the control system with no compromise to performance. Our highest performance I/O available for you today. And I encourage you to see that in the show floor. And in 2026, you will see a brand new generation of compact Logix controllers that leverage Point Max as the local I/O solution, not just as the distributed I/O system. And then Ethernet IP and cabinet. Last year I told you all about the simplification that comes along with Ethernet IP and cabinet solutions. And we've continued to add even more industrial component devices to that portfolio. So a very broad set of solutions for you to simplify all the terminations, all the wiring, the construction of these modules. And when it comes to robotics, I would submit that we have one of the most comprehensive solutions of robotics in this industry, starting with premier integration of third-party robot controller partners, simplifying and reducing the risk of integrating disparate technologies with the rest of the automation system. Things like communications, safety communications, data flow, all of that is simplified. And they take it a step further, where we bring the robot control function as a software-defined discipline in Logix that can be even further augmented with additional capabilities that you bring in as your own workloads as part of SDA, dramatically simplifying what it takes for you to consume robotics, all the way to the full integration of the entire stack, including the mechanics for certain geometries where we have the opportunity to add the most value, and they also happen to be some of the fastest growing types of robots in this industry. Things like iTrack, in-machine solution for high throughput needs, MagneMotion, autonomous intelligent material movement in between machinery, and of course, autonomous mobile robots, with not just the robots, but with the entire infrastructure for simplifying and transforming production logistics, orchestrating all the way from raw material inputs into the production process, all the way to the outputs into inventory or towards customer demand. So when you combine what's available to you today with software-defined automation, with artificial intelligence, and with robotics, yes, you can start to build towards the future of autonomy today. You know, a future of autonomy where you have systems that are a lot more agile, systems that are a lot more resilient, systems that always run optimized, and perhaps most importantly, a system where your workforce is a lot more empowered. So I encourage you to go and check all of these technologies and much more at our show floor today. Thank you very much for being part of this with us. Thanks very much for being here in Chicago, and I wish you a great week today at Automation Fair.